Never Meant to Be. Social and romance novel. Written by Zen Raf. Available on KDP Amazon. Chapter 10. Part 1. The Present. The restaurant's morning rush had just begun to settle into its regular hum. The clinking of cutlery, the low murmur of conversations, and the occasional sharp commands from the kitchen fused into a familiar background. Overhead, the ceiling fan spun sluggishly, pushing around the warm, spiced air that always seemed trapped in the place. Rakesh was wiping down a corner table near the window, his mind elsewhere, drifting, distracted, when the sharp, nasal voice of Mr. Main called out from behind the counter. Rakesh, Uttam, cabin. Now. Rakesh stiffened mid-wipe. He turned slowly toward the boss's cabin, heart already tightening in his chest. Uttam, who was casually leaning near the water station, didn't even flinch. He took a lazy sip from the steel tumbler in his hand, set it down, and then followed Rakesh with slow, unbothered steps. Inside the cabin, the air was cooler thanks to the rattling air conditioner, but it felt no less suffocating. The boss, Mr. Main, sat behind his desk with a half-empty cup of tea and a barely touched spreadsheet open on his screen. He didn't offer them a seat. Instead, he motioned to stand, together, shoulder to shoulder, facing him. Rakesh stood straight, hands behind his back like a guilty schoolboy. Uttam, by contrast, slouched slightly, one hand resting on his hip, the other in his pocket, his jaw tight with apathy. So Mr. Main began, drawing out the word like it pained him. Any idea why I called you both in? Rakesh glanced sideways at Uttam, who looked at a stain on the ceiling as if it were of greater concern than the man in front of them. Rakesh swallowed. Sir, we don't know. Maybe for the new table shifts, he offered weakly, voice light with forced innocence. Main narrowed his eyes. Shift changes. He chuckled sarcastically. What a sweet guess. But no. With a swift motion, he turned the computer monitor toward them. How about this? The screen played a grainy video on loop. The footage was from a corner of the locker room. The camera was likely placed long ago and forgotten by most staff. Rakesh's breath caught as the video showed that night's events in shameful clarity. There he was, falling backwards with a thud as Uttam yanked his ankle mid-argument. The silence in the room felt like static. You too, Main began, voice cold now, are grown men, not school kids in a playground. Rakesh opened his mouth, tried to form a defense, but the words dissolved. I don't care who started it, Main continued, shifting his glare from one to the other. This is a workplace. We serve food, not drama. And Uttam, he pointed to the screen again, fast-forwarding a bit. You left the back door open. Wide open. On screen, Uttam was seen walking out and not bothering to lock it. Rakesh turned slowly toward Uttam, eyes wide in disbelief. Uttam merely shrugged. Main slapped the desk. You think this is a joke? What if someone had walked in? Stolen something? Hurt someone? Still, Uttam said nothing. His lips were pressed into a thin, disinterested line. I should throw both of you out, the boss muttered, fingers drumming against the desk. But I won't, because I need staff. But next time, he leaned forward, voice low and dangerous, you're gone. Both of you. Neither spoke. Rakesh kept his eyes on the floor, while Uttam casually examined his nails. Now get out. The two stepped out, the cabin door clicking shut behind them. The hallway outside was cooler, quieter, but the tension still clung to Rakesh, like sweat. Just then, Preeti peeked out from behind the reception counter. Her brows furrowed the moment she saw them. Rakesh, she called, come here. Rakesh walked over, trying to straighten his expression, but the concern on her face made it harder. What happened inside? She asked softly, her voice barely above the ambient noise of the restaurant. Nothing, Rakesh muttered, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Just some scolding. The boss was in a bad mood. Preeti tilted her head slightly, not convinced. Was it about last night? Rakesh paused. He looked down at his shoes, then nodded sideways faintly, but was still ashamed. Preeti sighed. I told you both to calm down. I know, but it's nothing to do with you. Though, it was before that, Rakesh whispered. Then what was this about? Why did the boss call you? And she reached out and tugged the sleeve of his shirt lightly, like she wanted to say more. But then a customer called her from across the counter. Preeti gave him one last glance, soft, searching, then turned away. Rakesh exhaled, long and heavy, and made his way back to the floor, the faint taste of shame still lingering like stale tea. Part 2. The past Preeti's first day at the job. The restaurant buzzed with the usual mid-afternoon lull. A few scattered customers were finishing their thalis, spoons clinking softly against steel plates. The kitchen had quieted to a steady simmer, the spicy aroma of curry still lingering in the air. Inside the service area, near the entrance to the staff lockers, a small group of employees had gathered, an impromptu assembly called by the manager. Rakesh stood near the center, arms crossed loosely, a polite half-smile on his face. Next to him was Uttam, who had been with the team for around a couple of months now, quiet, observant, and always a bit aloof. His uniform was perfectly pressed, hair slicked back without a strand out of place. "Everyone," the manager said, gesturing to a petite girl standing by the counter, "this is Preeti. She'll be handling the cashier desk from today." Rakesh's eyes followed the gesture. The girl was young, probably in her early 20s. She had a small frame, delicate features, and a shy but confident air. Her hair was neatly tied into a bun, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she gave the staff a quick scan and a courteous smile. "Hello," Preeti said softly, offering a nod to everyone. Rakesh felt something stir, an unexplainable warmth. Maybe it was her gentle tone or the way she carried herself with both modesty and strength. The other workers nodded back. Some mumbled their names. But in the back, near the staff refrigerator, one of the older waiters leaned close to Rakesh and whispered, "I hope this boss doesn't start firing us old workers. Keeps bringing in new ones every month." Rakesh turned slightly, lips pursed, but before he could respond, the man realized Uttam was standing right next to them, well within earshot. The whisperer blinked, as if only now noticing Uttam's presence. He didn't apologize. Instead, he averted his eyes, nodded stiffly at Rakesh, and walked away with his gaze low, deliberately ignoring Uttam. Uttam remained still. No reaction. His expression didn't change, not a flicker. His arms were folded, and his eyes followed the departing man for a second, then returned forward. But Rakesh felt the weight of that silence. He turned to Uttam, voice quiet and sincere. "Hey, don't take it personally, okay? Some people don't think before speaking." Uttam gave a short, humorless smile. "I'm used to it." Before Rakesh could say more, a cheerful voice broke through. "Hi." Preeti stood in front of them now, hand extended with that same charming smile. "I'm Preeti." Rakesh took her hand first. "I'm Rakesh. Welcome." Then she turned to Uttam. "And you?" "Uttam," he replied simply, shaking her hand. She held his gaze for a second longer than necessary, then smiled. But when her eyes shifted back to Rakesh, the smile widened, softened, like a familiar light finding its way through curtains. Uttam noticed. That subtle difference. And it stung. Rakesh didn't seem to notice. He cleared his throat and motioned toward the cashier's corner. "Come on, I'll show you around. We'll start with the booking register." They walked side by side toward the desk, Preeti listening intently as Rakesh spoke. "So, these are the daily booking entries," he explained, pulling out a thick, ruled register from under the counter. "You write down the party name, contact, time, and the number of people." Preeti leaned in to look, her head tilting slightly toward him. "Got it. This looks manageable." Rakesh chuckled softly. "It's easier once you get the hang of it." Uttam stood a few feet away, pretending to check the water jugs. His eyes, though, stayed fixed on the pair. "Now for party orders," Rakesh continued, flipping open another folder. "This is the list of items we generally offer. Most people go for the standard thali, but if they want something special, you can ask the chef directly." "And how do I request new materials if something runs out?" Preeti asked. Rakesh was already one step ahead. "You fill this form here, see? Then give it to Chef Irvind before noon. He prefers knowing early." "Thanks," she said, flashing him another smile. "You're really good at explaining." Rakesh rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. "Just been doing it for a while, that's it." Preeti laughed, a soft, musical sound, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Uttam tightened his grip on the water jug he was holding. It wasn't just the way Preeti was talking to Rakesh. It was the way she looked at him, curious, attentive, amused, like she already trusted him, like she saw something special in him. And Rakesh, always humble, didn't even seem to realize it. Uttam quietly returned the jug to the shelf and walked away, unnoticed. But his steps were slower. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He'd seen enough. Part 3. The past later. The warm coal-hopper evening air smelled faintly of tamarind and hot poth. As the last slant of sunlight filtered through the dust of the roadside, Rakesh and Preeti stepped out of the restaurant together. A gentle breeze stirred the yellowing leaves of the gulmohar trees lining the road. "You take the bus home?" Rakesh asked, stuffing his hands into his pockets. Preeti nodded. "Yeah, it's cheaper, and I don't mind the wait." They started walking slowly toward the bus stop at the corner, the traffic light blinking red and green on the far end of the road, casting soft reflections on the puddles from the afternoon water cleaning. "Where do you stay?" he asked, keeping his pace light, careful not to seem too eager. "With my elder sister, at least for now," Preeti replied. "Just a single room, near Rankala Road. She works at a tailoring shop nearby. I moved in with her when I started working here." "Your parents?" "In the village," she said, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "They wanted me to stay back, get married maybe, but I convinced them. Told them I want to study." Rakesh looked at her, surprised. "Study? What are you studying?" "I want to become a chartered accountant." Her eyes lit up. "I've been preparing for the foundation level." He let out a low whistle. "That's not easy." "Impressive." She grinned. "Nothing worth doing ever is, I suppose." They reached the bus stop, a half-broken concrete bench with faded paint. A few old men sat nearby, quietly smoking biddies. Rakesh and Preeti sat down at the far end of the bench, the city lights slowly coming alive around them. "You always wanted to work in a hotel?" she asked, hugging her small purse close to her lap. Rakesh chuckled. "Not really. I came here after my schooling. Didn't know what to do. My father's old friend's friend was the owner of this restaurant before Mr. Main took over. He gave me this job. I only had two options, though. Be a farmer like my father and rely on rain. You know how that goes." "Yeah, that's rough." Preeti understood, coming from a similar background. "Or, I had to choose city life. That was the only way. Didn't know if it would work out for me. But thank God for Mr. Inamdar, my father's friend, who's the reason I have this job." Rakesh gathered his palms in gratefulness. "Must have been nice, someone helping you out like that." "It was. I didn't have anything figured out," he admitted, glancing at the tar road as if searching for something in its cracks. "Still don't, to be honest." She smiled warmly. "But you're doing fine." He shrugged. "Mr. Main's a bit of a stickler, always shouting about something. But he's not a bad guy. Just cranky in the mornings." Preeti giggled. "I noticed." They both laughed, the kind of quiet laughter that lingers and connects, like shared secrets passed between glances. Rakesh found himself looking at her a little longer than he intended, and she noticed a faint pink rising in her cheeks. Then a car horn blared, sharp and out of place in the gentle silence. The past, before Preeti. A sleek, dark blue BMW pulled up in front of him, headlights still on, engine humming softly. Rakesh stood up, brow furrowing. He walked toward the car, curiosity mixed with recognition in that darkness. He leaned toward the half-lowered window. "Hina," he said. Inside the car, barely visible in the low interior light, Hina pushed her sunglasses up into her hair. "Finally, I was going to call you. Papa's flight is landing in 20 minutes. We need to get going." "But wait," Rakesh started. "No time now," Hina interrupted, glancing at the time on the dashboard. "We'll talk later." "Come on, sit. Let's go." Rakesh hesitated a moment, then nodded. "All right." Rakesh opened the passenger door. Then the car glided away, its taillights glowing like red embers as it turned the corner and vanished into the city. Rakesh's thoughts still stayed on the bus stop. His heart was trying to take breath, not wanting to meet the man of so much mystery for a long time. He's Hina's father. I wonder how he is, or just like his daughter. Wondering if he would be liked by Hina's father or not, Rakesh let Hina drive him wherever. Part 4. The past. The car sliced through the nighttime roads, city lights reflecting off its polished frame as coal-hopper blurred past. Rakesh sat beside Hina, quiet for a while, before turning slightly toward her. "Did Uncle call you?" he asked, his voice soft over the low hum of the engine. Hina didn't look at him. He must be tired," Rakesh said, trying to bridge the distance he could feel growing between them. "Do you think he'll like me?" Rakesh chuckled awkwardly, looking out the window, then back at her. Playful. "What if he doesn't let me marry you, huh?" She exhaled sharply through her nose, still staring ahead. He leaned forward a bit. "Hey, are you okay?" Silence. Is this about me not coming to your house? He asked, finally catching the unease in her face. I told you, I need more time. You are putting pressure on me now. I've been living in that room for so long. Try to understand. Mr. Inamdar helped me a lot. I tried. You tried. Hina turned to him, voice sharp now. Don't act like you tried. You were busy. What, passing time at the bus stop? Rakesh frowned. What else am I supposed to do? It takes time for a bustie. And when I said, let's buy a new car for you, you were hell-bent on your pride, Hina snapped. He blinked. That's not fair. It's not pride. I wanted to tell you about the loan. And you were comfortable with driving cars in this traffic. I'm not. You're forcing me. You should have just listened to me. Why is your pride getting in between us? Why do you feel so ashamed of me all the time? She said coldly. Hope I don't end up as some afterthought at a bus stop. Rakesh leaned back in his seat, staring at her. I don't get it. Why are you suddenly angry? I thought women wanted their men to be independent, not beggars. Hina crossed her arms on the steering wheel, looking away again as she took a turn. I just wanted you to be with me, not feel ashamed of me. Well, you're assuming things about me. I'm not ashamed of you. I love you. But just put yourself in my shoes. I feel like a worthless. He muttered under his breath. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. The rest of the ride to the airport was steeped in silence. The air between them turned dense, like the monsoon clouds just before they break. Rakesh kept stealing glances at her, hoping she would say something, anything, but she just stared ahead, her profile glowing in the faint lights from the dashboard. They pulled up outside Kolhapur Airport. The terminal stood quietly under yellow sodium lights, a modest bustle of taxi drivers and passengers circling the front. Rakesh stepped out and walked beside Hina as they stood by the arrival gate. He hesitated, then reached down and gently took her hand. She let him for a second, but her fingers didn't curl around his. I love you, Rakesh said, his voice low. She didn't reply. He turned to her, about to say something more, when Hina. A booming, cheerful voice cut through the air. Rakesh turned, startled. Striding through the terminal glass doors came a tall, commanding man in a black suit, pulling a sleek, black rolling suitcase behind him. His salt and pepper hair was slicked back perfectly. His blazer clung sharp to his broad frame. His eyes, full of fondness, were locked on Hina. Papa. Hina jolted, her face lighting up. She ran into his arms. They hugged tightly, Hina laughing in a way Rakesh hadn't seen in weeks. Like a little girl who forgot everything else for a moment. You've gotten thinner, her father said, inspecting her with playful concern. What are you eating, huh? You better not be skipping meals just to design all those buildings. You're still the same, she teased. All that attitude and scolding. He laughed, then turned to Rakesh. His smile thinned, eyes narrowing slightly with curiosity. This is Rakesh, Hina said, standing beside him now. Her father adjusted his tie with one hand and extended the other. Finally met the mystery man. Navin Vibhut. Rakesh Kura, Rakesh said, trying not to sound nervous. Navin's handshake was firm. Too firm. The kind that tests the strength of the man in front of him. Let's get something to eat, Navin said, already walking toward the car. I'm starving after that bland plain food. They drove to the five-star hotel near Rankala. As Hina drove, Rakesh sat quietly in the back beside her father, his eyes flicking between the city lights and the reflection of his own awkward posture in the window. He could feel his shirt cling to his back, sticky from nervous sweat. So, Rakesh, Navin began. What is it that you do? I work in a restaurant, Rakesh said carefully. It's a good place. I've been there for a while. Navin nodded slowly, the enthusiasm dimming behind his sharp eyes. What do you do exactly? I mean, Hina told me, but I wanted to hear it from you. I'm a waiter, but I help out with managing too, sometimes bookings, party orders, materials. Navin hummed noncommittally, then looked out the window. And your future plans? Rakesh hesitated. I haven't really figured that out yet. I'm still trying to find my path. I see. Navin didn't bother hiding the note of disappointment in his tone. Rakesh cleared his throat. My parents are in the village. Simple people. My father's a farmer. Mother takes care of the home. Navin gave a faint smile, but didn't say anything more. The silence that followed felt longer than the road itself. Rakesh sat still, the weight of Hina's father's silence pressing into him like stone. His heart pounded against his chest, not from love, not from nerves, but from the sinking feeling that no matter how much he smiled or how kindly he spoke, he wasn't going to be good enough. Not for this car. Not for this family. Not for Hina. Part 5. The past continue. The dining hall of the five-star hotel shimmered with gold-accented lights and clean-cut elegance. Crystal chandeliers twinkled above, casting soft halos over every table. Waiters in crisp uniforms moved with ballet-like precision, gliding past tables where polished men and women chatted over wine and gourmet dishes. Rakesh sat stiffly at the edge of his seat. The plush velvet cushion beneath him felt too soft, too luxurious for someone like him. His fingers, nervously fidgeting with the napkin, brushed the edge of the silver cutlery, so clean it reflected his face like a distorted mirror. He caught a waiter passing by. Their eyes met briefly. Was that a smirk? No, probably not. Or was it? Rakesh swallowed. The collar of his only decent shirt scratched his neck. He glanced around. The guests at nearby tables looked like people out of movies. Expensive watches, tailored jackets, manicured nails. He was sure one of them looked over. Then another. Were they laughing inside? Were they wondering why a man like him was here? He shifted in his seat. His shoes, cheap faux leather, squeaked embarrassingly as he adjusted. Navin Vibhut sat across from him, legs crossed elegantly, eyes scanning the menu with ease. His black suit looked freshly tailored, the watch on his wrist glinting under chandelier light. Hina sat beside him, distractedly flipping through the menu too. Rakesh hadn't even picked up his menu. So, Navin suddenly said, his voice breaking the tension. He folded his hands and offered a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. What's the name of the restaurant you work at? It's Blue Diamond, Rakesh replied, voice small. And what do you serve? Fast food. South, North Indian? Continental. Mostly Indian. We have snacks too. And, biryani is our best-selling dish. Navin nodded with a thin smile, then leaned slightly forward. Look, I'm a businessman, Rakesh. I like to shoot straight. Rakesh nodded. So let me ask you directly. He locked eyes with him. Do you love my daughter? The question hit him like a brick. Rakesh blinked. His eyes darted toward Hina, who had stopped browsing the menu. He could feel both their gazes now. Hina tightened her lips and attempted to hide behind the menu card. Her smile gave Rakesh some hope. He thought her anger was probably gone. I do, Rakesh said, throat dry. Yes, sir. I love her. There was a pause. Navin held his stare for a long moment, then leaned back, exhaling through his nose. The waiter arrived to take orders. Hina ordered confidently, while Navin added a fish. Rakesh, flustered, just pointed at the first vegetarian item he saw and nodded. As dinner went on, Rakesh barely touched his food. The clink of silverware, the faint music in the background, the echoing laughter from a nearby table, it all blurred into one oppressive hum in his ears. His chest felt tight, like the buttons on his shirt would burst open from how fast his heart was pounding. Later that night, at Hina's upscale apartment, Rakesh and Navin sat on the balcony while Hina went to the kitchen to make coffee. The night air was cooler here, high above the ground. The city lights below twinkled like dying stars. Rakesh sat on the edge of a cane chair, unsure whether to relax or brace himself. Navin stared into the distance, his expression unreadable. You know, Navin began after a long silence, I'll let her marry you. Rakesh turned to him, surprised. Really? Navin turned his head slowly. However, Rakesh's stomach turned. However, what? You'll marry her within a month. Rakesh blinked. A month? Why? Why so soon? Navin didn't hesitate. Because I don't trust you. That hit like a slap. If it were up to me, Navin continued, voice calm but cutting, I would have thrown you out of her life the moment I saw you. But Hina loves you, and I'll never hurt her happiness. Rakesh opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Navin leaned closer, elbows on his knees. But now that I've seen you, I think I understand. She chose you because you're safe. Because you never argue. You never fight. You don't even stand up for yourself. Rakesh's face flushed with shame. He looked down at his hands, fist clenched unknowingly. Out of shame, not anger, perhaps hate towards himself. Navin studied him, then smirked faintly. Are you mad at me for saying all this? Are you going to storm out right now? Are you going to leave her forever? He said it almost mockingly, as if daring Rakesh to have a backbone. Before Rakesh could respond, the balcony door slid open. Coffee. Hina announced brightly, carrying a tray. She placed the mugs in front of them, her ponytail bouncing as she smiled. Papa, your favorite, extra strong. Navin's demeanor instantly softened as he took the cup. Perfect, darling. Rakesh reached for his mug, but his hands were cold now. Then, as Hina sat beside him, Navin leaned back and took a long sip. He looked over the rim of his cup at Rakesh, eyes gleaming. You're not in any hurry to go anywhere, right? Before Rakesh could reply, Hina whined. No way. He's not going anywhere. I'll drop him off later. Rakesh forced a smile. He looked at Hina, glowing, happy, so unaware of the exchange that had just happened. Then he turned his face away, into the night sky beyond the balcony, letting the silence eat at him. The coffee in his hand had already started to go cold. Part 6. The past, later. The quiet hum of Hina's car engine cut into the stillness of the midnight street as it rolled to a stop in front of Rakesh's modest lodging. The headlights dimmed, and the street was bathed in a soft amber glow from a flickering lamp nearby. The world around them had gone to sleep, but inside the car, the silence between Rakesh and Hina pulsed with unspoken tension. Rakesh reached for the door handle. Wait, Hina said softly. Her fingers wrapped gently around his wrist. Rakesh turned to her, surprised. The light from the dashboard cast a delicate highlight on her cheekbones. Her lips parted just slightly, her eyes meeting his with a tender playfulness. Aren't you going to give me a kiss? She asked, tilting her head. He managed a faint smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. Leaning forward, he gave her a quick kiss on the lips, brief, almost mechanical. As he opened the door again, ready to escape into the cool night, she grabbed his collar sharply. What the he gasped, startled. Hina yanked him back toward her, gripping his face with both hands. Her expression had shifted completely, her brows drawn, mouth twisted in concern, eyes locked onto his with fiery demand. Why are you acting like that? I thought you weren't mad at me anymore. She snapped. Did my dad say something to you? Rakesh blinked. His lips parted, but he hesitated. Then quietly, no. Why? I thought you were the mad one. She wasn't convinced. Before he could say more, Hina leaned in again, tilting her head, eyes closed slightly, waiting for another kiss. But Rakesh gently pulled his head back. The hurt on her face was immediate. Her eyes opened slowly. There was a flicker of fear there now. Her voice dropped to a whisper, trembling. Why are you not kissing me, Rakesh? Tell me honestly. His heart clenched. She looked so vulnerable in that moment, so unsure of herself. He hated seeing her like that, questioning her worth because of him. He thought of Navin's harsh words echoing in his head like a curse. She chose you because you're safe, because you never fight, because you never stand up for yourself. But this girl, this woman who loved him, wasn't his enemy. She didn't deserve the brunt of someone else's bitterness. His voice caught in his throat. Hina, I'm sorry. And then he kissed her. Not a peck, not a shy brush of the lips. A real kiss, long, passionate, full of every word he hadn't said all evening. Her hands gripped his face tighter as her body relaxed into his. Their breaths mingled, lips moving in soft urgency, until finally she pulled back just enough to rest her forehead against his. I love you, she whispered. Rakesh gave a small nod, brushing a strand of her hair behind her ear. I love you too. Eventually, she smiled and let him go. Good night, idiot. Good night, he murmured, stepping out into the cool night. The car rolled away slowly. Rakesh kept waving long after the red taillights had vanished from the lane. A voice broke the silence behind him. Hey, Rakesh. It was Hari, leaning over the balcony in a crumpled t-shirt and boxers. His hair was a mess. How long are you going to keep waving at an empty street? She's already gone, Romeo. Rakesh looked up and laughed under his breath. Go back to sleep. Sleep left me the moment I heard that car, Hari said, yawning and disappearing inside. Rakesh climbed the stairs to the first floor, entered his room, and was about to take off his shoes when he heard a knock. Hari was already at his door, barefoot, eyes slightly puffy but awake now. You okay? Hari asked as he walked in, uninvited as usual. You look like someone ran over your soul. Rakesh sat down on the edge of his bed. I'm fine. Did something happen at work? Your boss yelled at you again. No, nothing like that, Rakesh replied, running a hand through his hair. Actually, Rakesh chuckled lightly, but it faded quickly. Hari noticed. He crossed his arms and sat beside Rakesh. What's wrong, man? Something's off. It's nothing, really. Rakesh. It's Hina's dad. Hari's face darkened. What about him? Rakesh looked down. He said some things. Said I wasn't good enough for her. Said she chose me because I don't stand up for myself. Gave me a month to marry her. Hari stared at him, silent for a few beats. Then he said, that guy sounds like a real piece of work. He's just trying to protect her. No, that's not protection. That's manipulation. That's control. Hari stood up, pacing now. He doesn't even know you. He didn't raise you. He doesn't get to say what you are or aren't capable of. Rakesh didn't answer. He was stuck in his own head, the words repeating like a broken cassette tape. She chose you because you're safe. Because you never fight. Because you never stand up for yourself. Hari sighed and sat back down, placing a hand on Rakesh's shoulder. Hey, look at me. Rakesh looked up slowly. You're a good guy. That's why she loves you. Don't let anyone take that away, not even her dad. Hari kept staring at Rakesh until he got a response from him. Then Rakesh gave a small nod, but his eyes were elsewhere again. Hari stood up and stretched. Anyway, good luck with the future father-in-law. I'm gonna go crash. Rakesh watched him leave, then lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun slowly above, slicing the silence of the night. The end. Chapter 11. Part 1. The Present. It was late morning, and Kolhapur's air carried the weight of a day already warmed by the sun. From his small balcony, Rakesh could hear the lazy cawing of crows and the distant rattle of a vegetable vendor's cart being pushed along the lane. Inside, his room still clung to a sleepy quiet, the fan whirred slowly overhead, slicing through the lingering warmth of his dreams. There was a knock at the door. Rakesh opened it to find Mr. Inamdar standing with one hand on his walking stick and the other tucked behind his back as usual. His faded cream kurta was crisply ironed, the collar carefully stiffened like always. The man looked both gentle and regal, his weathered face lit up with a small smile. Good morning, Rakesh, he said with a nod. Good morning, sir, Rakesh said, stepping aside, gesturing for him to enter. But Mr. Inamdar didn't. He leaned slightly on his cane and waved his hand. Just a quick reminder. About the party. Rakesh blinked. Oh yes, this evening. Mr. Inamdar nodded. I told you boys last time. I hope you haven't forgotten. No. We'll be there, Rakesh assured him. You've done so much for us. We wouldn't miss it. Mr. Inamdar gave a pleased smile, then raised a finger. And bring that girl. The one who answers the phones at your restaurant. What's her name again? Preeti? Yes, sir. Preeti, Rakesh replied, smiling faintly. She's polite. I like her manners. Invite her. I will, Rakesh said with a nod. There was a pause. Mr. Inamdar's face shifted, his smile faded slowly, and something else began to stir there. A subtle conflict. His eyes flicked away for a second, and his hand rubbed the curved top of his cane. It was a rare thing to see the old man hesitate. Rakesh tilted his head slightly, noticing the change. Sir, is there something else? Mr. Inamdar opened his mouth, closed it again, then cleared his throat. It's not important. Are you sure? He finally looked at Rakesh, and this time his voice was lower, softer. Hina called me. Rakesh's breath caught. He didn't move, didn't speak. Said she wanted to wish me for my birthday. Mr. Inamdar continued, as if trying to convince himself that it was casual. Rakesh's eyes searched the man's face. Did you tell her anything? I didn't say anything unnecessary, the old man replied. But I did invite them. Both of them. She and her father. She seemed hesitant, but, oh well. The silence between them stretched. You did? Rakesh asked quietly. Mr. Inamdar nodded. Yes. I thought it was time. And, well, he is her father. And I am fond of that girl. Rakesh's jaw tightened ever so slightly. He nodded once, as though that would keep his thoughts from spilling over. Mr. Inamdar squinted at him. Are you all right? The question broke the trance. Yes, Rakesh said, too quickly. Then again, slower, forcing a smile. Yes, sir. I'm okay. It's your party. You don't have to care about my approval. Rakesh did a weak chuckle, scratching the back of his neck. The old man studied him for a beat longer, then gave a single nod and turned to descend the stairs. As he started down, Rakesh leaned out his door and shouted, Hari, don't forget about the party tonight. A muffled voice from inside the neighboring room responded with drowsy sarcasm. Yes. Got it. Rakesh chuckled under his breath and went back inside. The room felt stuffier than before. He pulled the chair out from under his desk and slumped into it. A narrow stream of sunlight fell across the cluttered table, scattered pins, an empty teacup, a phone charger coiled like a tired snake. He stared at his phone for a moment, then picked it up and dialed. Just as the first ring ended, Preeti picked up. "Hello." Her voice was soft, slightly breathless. There was a rustling sound in the background, maybe the folding of clothes. "Hey, it's me," Rakesh said, his tone gentle. "Oh, Rakesh. What's up? I just called to remind you about Mr. Inamdar's birthday party. You're coming, right?" There was a pause. "I was thinking about it," she said slowly. "I don't know. Should I really come?" "Why not?" he asked. "I mean, it's his party. Would he even care if I were there?" Her voice carried a note of doubt. Rakesh gave a small laugh. "If you don't come, he'll scold me. He specifically asked me to bring you. He likes you." There was a smile in her voice now. "Really?" "Yes. He said you have good manners. You've made an impression." "Well," she hesitated again. "All right. I was just about to step out anyway. I'll get ready and be there on time." "Good," Rakesh said, leaning back in his chair. "Don't be late." "I won't," she promised. "Okay. See you soon." "See you." Rakesh hung up and placed the phone on the table. Just then, Hari popped his head through the open door. "Talking to your girlfriend?" he teased with a grin. "She's not my—" Rakesh started, but Hari was already backing out. All right. Lover boy's busy," Hari called out as he disappeared into his own room again. Rakesh shook his head, but the corner of his mouth lifted in a small smile. The quiet returned, but now the air felt different, like something was coming. Part 2. The present later. Rakesh leaned back in his chair, his spine resting against the hardwood, his body heavy as if the weight of the morning had finally found a place to settle. His eyes drifted toward the slow-spinning fan above. A sigh escaped his lips, soft and tired. He placed a hand on his chest, right over his heart. It was beating steadily, but something in the rhythm felt uncertain. The familiar unease crept in like a slow fog. The party. Hina. Her father. His parents. The day felt like a pot too full, bubbling at the rim, threatening to spill. Suddenly, his phone lit up on the desk, vibrating with a gentle buzz. Mother calling. Rakesh's lips curled into a smile without realizing, but there was something tense behind it, like a student smiling at a teacher right before an exam. He stared at the screen for a second longer than he should have, then finally picked up. "Hello, Mom." "Rakesh?" Her voice was warm and clear, the kind that had the power to wrap around your heart even through a cheap phone speaker. He hummed, trying to sound cheerful. "How are you, Mom?" "I'm fine, honey. Just a little busy with packing. We're leaving in the next hour." "You're coming today?" His voice lifted with a touch of surprise, despite her having mentioned it earlier. Yes. Your father insisted. He says we shouldn't miss Mr. Inamdar's birthday. And you know your father, when he decides something, no one can stop him," Rakesh finished with a chuckle. His mother laughed. "Exactly. He's even decided which kurta he'll wear. That old white one with the blown-up collar." "Oh no, not that one again," Rakesh groaned, chuckling. "He wears that like it's royal attire." "It's his big occasion kurta," she said fondly. "He says it makes him look like a landlord." They both laughed, but Rakesh's smile faded a little as the laughter died down. A strange stillness settled in his chest. He rested his elbow on the desk and rubbed the side of his forehead, staring blankly at the window where a beam of sunlight cut across the dusty floor like a blade. "You're quiet now," his mother's voice broke through gently. "What are you thinking about?" Rakesh shook his head, though she couldn't see him. "Nothing, Mom. Just tired." There was a pause. Then she said, more carefully, "Mr. Inamdar also told your father that Hina and her father are coming." Rakesh's heart gave a small thud, but he didn't let it show in his voice. "Oh. Yes," his mother continued. "Your father didn't say much. He just nodded and said, 'It's Inamdar sir's birthday. He can invite whoever he wants.'" Rakesh smiled faintly, looking down at his hand on the desk. "That sounds exactly like him." His mother's voice was soft, laced with worry now. "But are you okay with it?" He let the silence hang for a moment before answering. "It's fine, Mom. Really. It's Mr. Inamdar's day. Nothing else matters. But if it bothers you—" "It doesn't," Rakesh cut in, quickly, then softened. "I mean, it did for a second. but I'm okay now. Besides, I haven't seen her in a long time. Maybe it'll be good to see her. Just as friends. His mother murmured, not entirely convinced. You always try to smile, even when you're hurting. Just don't hide too much, okay? Rakesh let out a small laugh, leaning back again. Mom, if I smile enough, the hurt gets confused and leaves. His mother gave a gentle hum, half laughing. You and your silly theories. But they work. Well, if that's the case, then smile a little more today. You never know who might need it. I will, he said, genuinely this time. You both take care on the road, all right? We will. And Rakesh. I made your favorite Puran Pali. Don't tell your father, though. He'll eat half of it before we reach. Rakesh laughed. I'll fight him for it. You better. All right. See you soon. Bye, Mom. He ended the call and placed the phone slowly back on the desk. His reflection shimmered faintly on the dark screen for a moment. He looked calm, but his eyes betrayed him. The fan spun on. The day was beginning to move faster. Somewhere inside, he could feel the tide rising. Part 3. The Past. The airport was bustling with late afternoon chaos. Flight announcements echoed from the overhead speakers, families huddled around luggage carts, and air hostesses briskly made their way across the terminal in crisp uniforms. Amid the crowd, near the departure gate, Rakesh stood stiffly next to Navin Vibhut, the man who was both intimidating and impossible to read behind his perfectly polished exterior. Rakesh held his hands behind his back nervously, watching as Hina walked away toward a souvenir shop nearby. Her long hair swayed gently across her back, her heels clicking softly against the tiled floor as she disappeared into the colorful maze of trinkets and duty-free goods. Navin stood beside Rakesh, hands in the pockets of his neatly tailored navy blazer. His face, a mask of courteous calm moments earlier, began to shift. As soon as Hina was out of earshot, the warm smile faded. His mouth straightened, and a faint but deadly scowl appeared at the edges of his lips. Then his eyes, sharp, cold, unwavering, locked onto Rakesh. Rakesh felt it immediately. Something heavy. He turned his head slightly, unsure. Sir. Navin leaned slightly toward him, playful taunting in his mind. When are you going to marry my daughter? As if Navin knew it's never going to work between them. Rakesh blinked, startled. What? You heard me. His voice was low, calm, too calm. When are you going to marry her? Rakesh's mind scrambled. I don't know. We haven't really talked about it. I don't know, Navin repeated, his voice now tinged with annoyance, mocking him. That's your answer? I just meant. Rakesh's throat was dry. We haven't discussed marriage yet. I didn't mean to. Navin's smile tightened and then disappeared entirely. He placed a hand on Rakesh's shoulder, gripping it firmly. Too firmly. His fingers dug in just slightly, but enough to send a clear message. Rakesh flinched, trying not to show it, but the pressure was unmistakable. Navin leaned in. His voice dropped lower, like a growl dressed in velvet. Let me tell you something, boy, he said. My daughter is clever, smarter than you think, and she gets bored quickly. She's like fire, bright, unpredictable. One day she loves something. The next, she doesn't even remember it. Rakesh stood frozen, unsure whether to speak or breathe. She's used to luxury, Navin continued. To everything first class. Raised like a princess. And you're a waiter in Kolhapur. A small man with no vision, no backbone. So let me make this easy for you. His grip tightened again. If you want to be with her, marry her. Otherwise, disappear from her life. Don't waste her time. Don't lead her on like you have something to offer when you don't. Rakesh swallowed hard, feeling the heat rise in his chest. Sir, I care about her. I really do. I never wanted to. Navin interrupted with a venomous sneer. You care? Then prove it. Marry her, or have some shame and leave her be. Or else. His eyes narrowed. I'll make sure you and your parents regret every second you've wasted with her. I don't care how old your mother is. I'll ruin her peace. I'll ruin your father's land. Don't think I won't. A peaceful smile on his face, but lava spitting from his mouth. Rakesh's breath hitched. He looked around, heart thudding, but the noise of the airport seemed distant now, muffled beneath the fear pounding in his ears. Please don't, he whispered, voice trembling. Please don't do anything to them. This is between us, me and you. Don't drag them into it. Navin said nothing for a beat. Then he leaned back, releasing Rakesh's shoulder. His face returned to its polished mask just in time as Hina approached them again, holding a small golden elephant figurine in her hands. "Look what I found," she said cheerfully, holding it up. "Isn't it cute? It reminded me of the one I had when I was little." Naven's face lit up with feigned warmth. "Perfect choice, Beta. You always did have an eye for things." She smiled and looked at Rakesh. "Did you two behave while I was gone?" Hina noticed Rakesh's expression. Naven chuckled, patting Rakesh lightly on the back. Of course. Just some boring old man talk. You know me." Rakesh forced a smile, but his face was pale, his mind a whirlwind. He couldn't meet her eyes. His stomach churned with the weight of everything unspoken. And somewhere deep inside, something had shifted. A silent crack in the surface, one he wouldn't be able to ignore for long. Part 4. The past later. The late afternoon sun filtered softly through the windshield, casting golden streaks over the dashboard as Rakesh drove slowly through the edges of the city. The roads were quieter now, the traffic thinning out as they moved past the clutter of shops and toward the more familiar streets near Rakesh's room. Hina sat beside him, her legs crossed, a gentle breeze lifting strands of her hair through the half-open window. She had her sunglasses perched on top of her head, and her voice was light as she spoke, filled with nostalgia and laughter. "You know," she said, turning slightly to him, "Bobby used to take me fishing when I was little. We had this small wooden boat, chip paint and all, and we'd row out onto this gorgeous lake near our cabin in the woods. It was surrounded by pine trees, smelled like fresh rain and soil." Her eyes sparkled. "We never caught much, but I didn't care. I just liked watching the water ripple whenever I dropped a pebble." Rakesh kept his eyes on the road, Hina's fingers on the steering wheel. He said nothing. Hina continued, oblivious to his silence. "We'd sit there for hours. Sometimes he'd bring sandwiches, those soggy tomato ones that I hated, but I never told him." She smiled, looking out the window now. "He gave me everything, Rakesh. He really did. My whole life. All the comforts, the schools, the travel. Even when he had nothing, he made it feel like we had the world." Rakesh's throat tightened. The words echoed in his mind. She was raised like a princess. "She'll get bored of you." He remembered how Naven's hand had crushed into his shoulder earlier, how his threats still rang like gunshots in his ears. "Why are you so quiet?" Hina asked suddenly, turning to him. "You've barely said anything since the airport." He glanced at her. Her brows were slightly raised, her face open, innocent. So much trust in those eyes, he thought, and it made something in him ache. "I'm just tired," he said softly. Hina tilted her head, searching his face for a beat. "Was it my father? Did he say something to you?" Rakesh shook his head too quickly. No, nothing like that." But the lie sat heavy on his tongue. His thoughts drifted, flashes of the past few months with her. The late-night drives, the way she'd laugh with her whole body, the soft way she'd brush the hair from his eyes. And then the other memories too, the time she shouted at a shopkeeper for not having her size in stock, the argument they had when Rakesh suggested skipping a weekend trip because he couldn't afford it. "You'll ruin her life," Naven had said. And maybe he was right. "I was just thinking," Rakesh began, then paused. "Thinking what?" she asked gently. He glanced at her again, really looking this time. Her profile glowed under the soft sun. Her lips were slightly parted, her hands resting lightly on her lap, fingers occasionally brushing the fabric of her dress. How did we even end up together? The thought crept in, uninvited but persistent. Nothing. Rakesh went back in his thoughts. The memory of that day came back to him, the day she walked into him at the museum, the fall that brought them together. He liked her the moment his eyes bestowed the angelic image of Hina on him, how he tried to look away so that he wouldn't fall in love with her. A peasant in love with a princess. That never happens. If it does, probably doesn't end well for the peasant. Rakesh thought to himself, stealing gazes from Hina and her sparkling eyes. The idea that she, someone so far above his world, could have chosen him, still felt surreal. And now he could see it unraveling in his mind. He smiled faintly, the kind that holds no joy, just acceptance. Hina noticed. "What?" she asked. "Why are you smiling like that?" Rakesh shook his head. "Nothing. Just thoughts." She looked at him for a moment longer, then turned her gaze back to the road ahead, the silence settling between them once more. And in that silence, Rakesh made peace with the truth forming like frost in his chest. They weren't meant to last. They were beautiful, yes, but beauty and reality didn't always hold hands. Naven hadn't created the cracks, he'd only pointed to them. Rakesh let out a soft breath, the corners of his eyes wet, though he hadn't cried. Maybe letting go wasn't betrayal. Maybe it was the only kindness he could offer her. Part 5. The past, some other evening. The alley was quiet, bathed in the amber glow of the early evening streetlights. A lone scooter buzzed by, its rattling engine fading into the distance. Hina pulled up slowly in front of Rakesh's building, the car's headlights washing over the crumbling stone wall and the rusted metal gate of the old compound. Rakesh reached for the door handle almost immediately, eager to escape the heaviness in his chest. Again, Hina said sharply, turning to him, "Why are you acting like this?" Rakesh paused, one foot already out. "Acting like what?" "Like you're trying to run away from me," she said, her tone irritated but more hurt than angry. "You've barely looked me in the eyes today." Rakesh looked back at her, lips slightly parted, unsure of how to respond. His eyes darted down for a second, then back at her. "I'm just tired, Hina. Are you mad at me again, like before my father came? I thought we were over that. I even said sorry." "No, don't worry. It's nothing." "Rakesh." Hina rolled her eyes, frustrated. "And where's my kiss?" Rakesh blinked, then leaned in hastily and gave her a quick peck on the lips. But as he turned away again, Hina clicked her tongue and tilted her head on the seat, her expression unimpressed. He froze, his hand on the door. Something in her expression softened him. Without a word, he reached over, gently pulled the door shut again, and turned fully toward her. Then, with slow purpose, he lifted one hand and cradled her face in his palm. His thumb brushed her cheek as his lips found hers, not in haste this time, but in longing deep, tender, almost desperate. It was the kind of kiss people don't talk about, the kind that says everything the mouth can't. His eyes squeezed shut as he kissed her again and again, his fingers slipping into her hair, holding her close like he wanted to disappear into her. Forget what he was and what she is. But in Rakesh's mind, pain was flooding the cracks. She deserves better than a guy who folds bills like they're gold. She deserves someone with a future, not someone surviving tip to tip. And yet, he couldn't let go. Not completely. Not now. Hina pulled back first, breathless, her expression dreamy and satisfied. "That's better," she whispered, a playful smile tugging at her lips. Rakesh forced a smile back, his hand slowly slipping away from her cheek. "Go," she said with a smirk, nudging him, "before I make you kiss me again." He opened the door with a smile and stepped out. "Drive safe," he said. "I always do," she replied and winked. As her car slowly reversed and then rolled away down the narrow alley, Rakesh stood watching until the taillights turned a corner and vanished into the night. The smile on his face faded like mist. His shoulders sagged, and the air suddenly felt colder. The staircase up to his room felt steeper than usual, each step a reminder of how small his world was. As he reached his floor, a burst of laughter came from the room next door. Hari's voice echoed through the corridor. "Oh man," then she said, "am I some simple girl or what?" Hari cackled loudly. Rakesh stood still in front of Hari's half-open door and lifted his hand. He made a quick gesture, flicking his fingers toward his own room. Hari, still grinning mid-call, nodded and held up a finger to say, "Give me a minute." Rakesh gave him a weak thumbs up and trudged into his room. The dim light above flickered once before steadying. The bed creaked as he dropped onto it without taking off his shoes. He lay still, eyes fixed on the fan above. Thoughts twisted through his head like smoke. He remembered the dinner at that expensive rooftop place. How Hina ordered wine without even glancing at the price. How she bought herself a branded bag the day after, without blinking. And how, in all those moments, she never once asked him to pay. Never. It should have made him feel respected. But it didn't. Instead, it made him feel replaceable. Like an accessory. Something soft to lean on, someone to kiss and talk to, but never someone needed. Does she think of me as a pet? He chuckled at the cruel thought, half in pain, half in disbelief. The sound echoed in the silent room, bitter and broken. It wasn't Hina's fault. She never asked for anything. But her world, her effortless, polished, luxurious world, it was light years from his. He remembered the first day he met her father. How Naven had sized him up with a single glance. "She chose you because you're safe. Because you never fight. Because you never stand up for yourself." The words had echoed in his head ever since, loudest in the quietest moments. Rakesh ran a hand over his face, palms cold against the warmth of his skin. In his heart, he wanted to believe love could be enough. But the truth? It rarely was. And now, it felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing the fall was coming, but unable to step back. Part 6. The past continue. Rakesh lay motionless on his back, one arm draped across his forehead, when the soft creak of the door pulled him from the weight of his spiraling thoughts. Rakesh. Hari's voice came low, hesitant. Rakesh turned his head slightly toward the doorway. Hari stepped in, closing the door behind him, then made his way to the chair at the desk and spun it around before plopping down. You okay? Hari asked, resting his forearms on his thighs. You looked like you'd seen a ghost when you called me. Rakesh sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes as if trying to wake from a bad dream. I don't know where to start. Hari shrugged. Start anywhere, man. I'm here. Rakesh exhaled, rubbing his hands together. His mouth opened, but nothing came out for a moment. Finally, with a strained voice, he said, It's about Hina. Hari's eyebrows rose slightly. What happened? Did you two fight? No, nothing like that. Rakesh stared down at the floor. We dropped her dad at the airport today, and while she went to buy him a souvenir, he said something to me. Something I haven't been able to shake off. Hari leaned in slightly, now alert. What did he say? Rakesh looked up, eyes dull. He looked me straight in the eye and asked me when I was going to marry his daughter. Hari blinked. Whoa, that's direct and unexpected. I didn't even know what to say. I just said I didn't know, and that pissed him off. He grabbed my shoulder so hard it hurt. He was glaring at me like I was some parasite clinging to his daughter. Hari's easy expression faltered, a crease forming between his brows. He told me Hina gets bored easily. She likes luxury. That she was raised like a princess, Rakesh continued. He warned me if I don't marry her, I should get out of her life. And if I mess around, he'll destroy my life. My parents too. Damn. Hari breathed out, leaning forward in discomfort. That's intense. Rakesh stood up, restless now, pacing slowly. It's not just what he said. It's what it made me realize. He's right, Hari. I've had these thoughts before about Hina. The way she spins without blinking. The way she gets tired of things so fast. She once threw a tantrum at a cafe because they didn't have almond milk. Hari raised both eyebrows, cracked a tired smile. That does sound like her. She's never asked me for money. Never. But that makes me feel worse, not better. It's like I'm not even in the equation. She buys whatever she wants. Goes wherever she wants. I can't keep up with her life. I'm just a waiter in a mid-range restaurant who can barely afford rent. You're more than that, Hari said, voice steady. She wouldn't be with you if you weren't. That's the thing. Rakesh turned to him. I don't know why she's with me. What am I giving her that someone else, richer, more successful, more her type, can't give? She's like this angel flying in the sky, and he gestured at himself. I'm just stuck here on earth. Hari sat quietly for a moment, letting the words settle in the air. I get it, he said finally. I mean, I see it too. Hina's not easy. She's demanding, complicated. But look, bro, she's also an only child. Raised without a mom. Rich dad, always working, probably trying to overcompensate with gifts and holidays. Of course, she grew up like a little empress. Rakesh crossed his arms and stared at the ceiling. And now she expects the world to keep up with her pace. Maybe, Hari said with a half-smile. Or maybe, she's just looking for someone who doesn't treat her like a trophy. Someone real. Someone who listens when she talks about stupid fishing trips or that abandoned dog she wanted to adopt. You do that. You see her when no one else does. Rakesh sat back down on the bed, head bowed. But still, man. Hari shrugged. If I were you, I'd have married her already. She's smart, rich, pretty. What else do you want? Rakesh gave him a dry look. It's not that simple. Hari chuckled. I know, her pops. But sometimes we overthink things. Maybe you just need to take the leap. Propose to her. What? Rakesh frowned. You're not listening. I'm saying maybe we're not meant to be. Maybe it's all a dream I got lost in. Hari raised a hand. I'm listening. And I hear your doubts. But listen to me too. You love her, right? Rakesh hesitated, then nodded, slowly. Then don't let fear screw this up for you. Take some time. Think. But don't walk away just because you're scared. You're not enough. That's not love, bro. That's surrender. Silence stretched between them for a moment. Hari stood up, slapped Rakesh gently on the shoulder. Take the night. Think about it. Don't torture yourself. As he turned and walked to the door, he added, "If it were me, I'd be married to her and asking her to buy me a new car by now." Rakesh cracked a faint smile, but it quickly faded as the door shut. The room felt heavier again. He lay back down, the fan whirring overhead. But his mind was a storm. He could still feel Navin's grip on his shoulder. Still see the subtle flickers of boredom in Hina's eyes when she talked about new places and shiny things. And somewhere in that whirlwind of thoughts, a quiet, painful truth pressed against his heart. Maybe I was never enough for her. And now, he wasn't sure if he ever could be. The end. Chapter 12. Part 1. The present. The room was quiet, save for the occasional caw of a crow outside the cracked window and the soft, metallic ticking of the old wall clock. Rakesh sat on the edge of his neatly made bed, his hands clasped loosely between his knees, eyes fixed to a spot on the dusty floor tiles. He wore a light blue shirt, crisp and neatly tucked into black trousers, and an old gray blazer that hadn't seen daylight in years. His polished shoes tapped the floor lightly, rhythmically, like his body was trying to burn off the nerves he didn't want to admit he had. He didn't usually dress like this. He didn't usually sit this stiff. The door creaked open behind him, and a gust of cooler air came in with Hari, who barged in like a whirlwind of perfume and confidence. He stood in the center of the room with his arms spread wide like a peacock showing off. "Tata," Hari announced with a grin stretching from ear to ear. "Check this out, man. Imported fabric, tailored to the inch. One of my girls picked it out for me." She said, "Hari, you look like some model." He struck a pose with his hand on his hip, then turned for Rakesh to admire the back. "Tell me I look hot." Rakesh lifted his eyes briefly and managed a weak, enthusiastic, polite smile. "It's good. Fits you well." Hari frowned immediately and dropped his arms. "That's it. Good. That's all." He walked closer, narrowing his eyes at his friend. "Normally you'd say something like, 'You look like a freeloader at a wedding,' or 'That suit has more lies than your relationships.'" Hari sat on the edge of the desk, arms folded. "What's up with you, bro?" Rakesh gave a small shake of the head, almost a shrug. "Just tired. Don't lie. You're too quiet. And I know you. You only shut up when something's eating at you." Rakesh looked away, blinking slowly. His eyes lingered on the curtain swaying gently in the window breeze. "Preeti went out this morning. She's buying something for Mr. Inamdar. Still not back." Hari raised a brow. "That was hours ago. What's she buying? A camel?" Rakesh let out a low, humorless chuckle. "I don't know. She said she wanted it to be special." Hari stood up and walked to the small table to pour himself some water from the steel jug. He drank, then turned, glass still in hand. "You're not even curious where she is. Something's wrong." Rakesh rubbed his palms over his thighs, then folded his arms tightly. "It's not that." Hari raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Then what is it?" Rakesh didn't reply. Hari sighed, put the glass down, and sat again at the desk, this time leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "Is it because Hina's coming?" Rakesh looked up sharply, his lips parting like he was about to deny it. But he didn't. His eyes just stayed fixed on Hari, blinking. Hari gave a knowing smile and shook his head. "Man, you are a terrible actor. Anyone with half a brain could tell what's going on inside you. After all, it's not every day a man sees his ex-wife after so long." Rakesh let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding and leaned back slightly, his shoulders sagging. His fingers fidgeted with the hem of his blazer sleeve. "Yeah." There was silence for a moment. The fan above squeaked as it spun. Hari smiled gently. "Don't worry. We're here for you. You don't have to carry it alone." Rakesh looked at Hari, and his expression, though subdued, was soft with appreciation. "Thanks." Hari stood and patted Rakesh's shoulder. "And by the way, don't let her get in your head, okay? You're not the same Rakesh anymore." Rakesh gave him a dry look. "I'm still a waiter in the same city. But not the same man," Hari said with a wink. "And don't worry, I'll look so good in this suit, she won't even notice you." Rakesh managed a small smile, one that touched his eyes just a little this time. Hari smirked, clapped his hands, and said, "All right, I'm going to iron this again. Crease-free heartbreaker delivery incoming." As he left the room humming some romantic tune off-key, Rakesh stayed where he was, now staring at the faint line of light on the floor. The suit still felt too tight, too foreign. Like he was dressed up to play a version of himself that didn't quite fit. And yet, the clock was ticking, and she would be here soon. Part 2. The past. The air in Rakesh's room was dense with tension. A storm of unspoken thoughts brewed between the two people facing each other across the narrow space. The tiny ceiling fan above spun with a tired whir, failing to ease the summer heat that clung to their skin. The curtains danced ever so slightly from the window's breeze, brushing against the wall like whispers. Hina stood near the door, arms crossed, her face flushed, part anger, part disbelief. Her long hair clung to the sides of her face, strands curling at her neck with sweat. Rakesh stood near the bed, his hands in his pockets, his jaw clenched but silent, unmoved. "You're not even going to try, are you?" Hina's voice cracked the silence. "You're really going to stand there and say nothing?" Rakesh looked down, then to the side, unwilling to meet her gaze. "It's not that simple." "It is simple, Rakesh," Hina snapped. "It's been over 2 years. 2 years. And you still can't make a damn phone call to your parents?" "I told you," he said quietly. "They wouldn't understand." Hina took 2 steps forward, eyes narrowed. "And you think avoiding the conversation will make them understand? You're not even giving them the chance." At that moment, the door next to Rakesh's creaked open. Hari's head poked out, eyebrows raised at the rising volume. His eyes moved between Hina and Rakesh, until Hina turned her sharp glare toward him. Hari raised his hands, backed away like a guilty thief, and disappeared into his room, pulling the door shut with a soft click. Hina scoffed. "Perfect. Everyone knows your secret love life, but your parents." "Hina, don't." "No," she barked, stepping forward again. "If you're too scared, just give me their number. I'll call them myself. I'll tell them their son has someone in his life, even if he doesn't have the spine to do it." "No," Rakesh said, firmly now. Hina's hands curled into fists. "Why not? Damn it. What are you so afraid of? What are we even doing, Rakesh? When are we getting married? Or are you planning to keep this a secret forever?" "I don't know," he murmured. Hina let out a bitter laugh. "You don't know? That's your answer." She lunged forward suddenly, hand reaching toward his pant pocket. "Fine, I'll get the number myself." Rakesh shifted his hip smoothly, catching her wrist and gently pulling her hand out. "Don't do this," he said, voice low. "Please." The rejection, the restraint, it all only made her angrier. Her breath was ragged, her cheeks flushed deeper. But she didn't speak this time. She just stood there, chest rising and falling with every sharp inhale. The argument dissolved into a heavy silence. The seconds stretched. Finally, Hina turned and sat on the bed, defeated. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, palms over her face. The curtain fluttered behind her, brushing the back of her shoulder. Rakesh stood for a moment, then slowly sat beside her, leaving only a little space between them. He glanced at her from the side, trying to read the tight lines on her face. Then, without speaking, he raised his arm to place around her shoulder. She jerked away. "Don't," she muttered. But this time, Rakesh didn't withdraw. He reached again, more deliberately, and wrapped both arms around her from behind, locking her in a tight embrace. She struggled at first, trying to pull away, but he held her firm, not hurting, just holding. "I'm sorry. You know I love you. Why do you need my parents for?" he whispered. "I just don't know how to say it." "Say what?" she hissed, still half in resistance. "That I'm not enough." Hina stopped moving. Rakesh rested his chin near her shoulder. "That I don't know if I can give you the life you want, Hina. You've always had so much, your apartment, your lifestyle, your freedom. You talk about trips to Europe like they're weekend plans. I don't even know if I'll ever own a decent bike. What am I supposed to offer you?" "Who the heck told you that?" Hina in frustration. Rakesh thought all the faces who did, including Navin, but he nodded no one. She turned slightly, enough to see his face. "So that's it? You're just quietly pushing me away." "I'm not," Rakesh said, his eyes full of conflict. "I just don't want to promise you something I might never be able to give." Hina pulled away from his embrace and stared at him. "You think I care about those things?" "You should," Rakesh said simply. Almost everyone was reminding Rakesh how important these superficial things were. Without them, there is nothing. Even Hina's love. Rakesh didn't want to risk losing her. Love of his life. Hina stared at the floor for a long moment. "I started talking about marriage after my father came, I know. Maybe I did push too hard. But Rakesh, I'm not asking you for a palace or a luxury car. I just want to feel like we're moving forward. And right now, it feels like you're keeping me in a waiting room." Rakesh's heart twisted. She was right. But even now, he couldn't give her what she wanted. She looked at him again, her voice lower now, a trace of vulnerability under the anger. If you don't want to marry me, Rakesh, just say it. I'll go. Rakesh looked down again. Silent. Trapped. Outside, the sound of a street vendor calling out broke the silence of the room. Inside, the silence remained, heavier than before. Part 3. The past, later. The lake was quiet, almost too quiet. A gentle wind skimmed across the surface, but it wasn't refreshing today. The water, once bright and playful with its rippling reflections, now looked flat and tired, like it too had known disappointment. Dry leaves floated in slow circles near the shore, and the usually distant hum of the city seemed muffled by the stillness. A single bird chirped in the trees nearby, but even that faded quickly, as if the lake had hushed it. Rakesh sat on a weather-worn stone ledge that curved along the bank, arms resting on his knees. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his hair ruffled from walking. There was no one else around. The water's edge met the dirt gently, without enthusiasm. The world seemed paused. He stared at the screen of his phone for a moment before pressing the call button. It rang twice. Hina picked up, her voice hushed and clipped. Rakesh, I'm in a meeting. Can we talk later? He hesitated, swallowing. No, it's okay. I just wanted to tell you something. She said, clearly distracted. I'm going to the village. For a while. There was silence. Hina's voice returned, now more focused. For how long? I don't know, Rakesh said truthfully, eyes on the still lake. I think I should talk to my parents about us. More silence. Hina, he asked. Okay, she said finally. Quiet. You can go. The line went dead. Rakesh held the phone in his hand for a moment, then slipped it into his pocket. He didn't move for a while, just listened to the soft lapping of water and watched a torn plastic bag drift along the lake's edge, caught in the reeds. Continue. Back in his room, Rakesh pulled out a small duffel bag from beneath his bed. The room felt colder somehow, though the weather hadn't changed. He moved slowly, folding his clothes neatly, as if delaying what came next. His toothbrush, his diary, a shirt Hina had once said looked nice on him. It all went in without thought. The door creaked open. Hari stood at the threshold, toothbrush in mouth, foam at the corner of his lips. You going somewhere? Rakesh nodded without looking up. Yeah, to the village. Hari stepped in, pulling the brush from his mouth. What happened? Is someone sick? No, Rakesh said, zipping the bag. I just need some time. Need to talk to my parents. Hari leaned against the desk, crossing his arms, brush in hand. About Hina? Rakesh met his eyes briefly and nodded. Hari gave a long whistle. Finally, took you long enough. Rakesh half smiled, tired. I'm worried. Not sure it'll go the way Hina hopes. Hari tilted his head. Do you want it to go her way? That made Rakesh pause. He looked down, fingers tightening around the strap of his bag. I don't know. Hari didn't push further. He just gave Rakesh a pat on the shoulder. Well, if they don't like her, bring her to me. I'll convince them. I'm good with parents. Rakesh chuckled softly. Yeah, because they never see the other side of you. That's the trick, Hari grinned. Rakesh walked down the stairs of the building to the ground floor, where Mr. Inamdar was sitting outside on a wooden chair, where he used to sit when he would feel lonely. He had wrapped in his shawl, sipping warm water. A transistor radio crackled with a Marathi devotional song beside him. Hello, Mr. Inamdar, sir, Rakesh greeted. The old man looked up, peering through his thick glasses. Rakesh. Bag ready? You going somewhere? Rakesh nodded, standing with his hands folded in front of him. Yes, I'm going to my village for a while. Just a few days. Inamdar set down his cup. To meet your folks in the village? Yes, and also to talk to my father about something important. Inamdar raised an eyebrow. About that architect girl, Hina? Rakesh looked surprised. You knew? Inamdar gave a dry chuckle. I have eyes, boy, and ears, and memory. You're not as quiet as you think. Rakesh looked away, slightly embarrassed. Go, Inamdar said, picking up his cup again. Say hi to your father for me, and tell him his son is a good one, even if he forgets that sometimes. Rakesh's chest tightened. I will, uncle. Don't stay too long, the old man said, not looking at him now. City doesn't wait for anyone. Rakesh smiled faintly, bowed a little in gratitude, and turned to leave. As he stepped out into the narrow lane, his bag slung over one shoulder, the weight felt heavier than it should have been. Not because of clothes, but because of the things still unsaid. Part 4. The past, later. The bus rocked gently as it made its way through winding roads lined with green fields and the occasional old banyan tree standing like a quiet guardian over the countryside. The sun was beginning to dip, turning the sky into a soft orange wash that filtered through the dusty windows. Rakesh sat by the window, forehead leaning against the glass, watching the landscape blur past like memories. His bag sat between his feet, untouched since he boarded. But his mind was heavy, full of loops and half-finished sentences, ways he could start the conversation with his father, explanations that might make sense, soften the inevitable reaction. Yet none of them felt strong enough. He reached into his shirt pocket, pulled out his phone, and checked it. No messages. Not from Hina. Not from anyone. He locked the screen again and let out a slow breath. The promise. That foolish promise from years ago. When he was just a boy, maybe 11 or 12, his father, Shamar of Kara, had made a word-for-word agreement with a man from their village. Over tea and tobacco under a tree, his father had promised that one day, Rakesh would marry that man's daughter. She was sweet and quiet, but to Rakesh, she was a symbol of everything he didn't want, a life chosen for him, roots in a village he couldn't breathe in, and expectations so tightly wrapped around tradition that there was no room for desire. When he came to the city, he stayed there while lying about his job. When father found out about the lie, Rakesh had argued, really argued, for the first time in his life. His father had refused to listen, branding his rejection as betrayal. And Rakesh, with no money, no plan, and too much pride, had left for good. His savior, Mr. Inamdar, an old man no less than an angel, saved him from further suffering. But that was it for Rakesh's relationship with his father. Mr. Inamdar gave Rakesh a room and never once drilled too much into the reason why he hasn't gone back home. Rakesh had always appreciated that silent understanding. And now, after all these years, he was heading back to explain his love for the girl he'd fallen in love with. A girl who was nothing like what his parents would expect. A girl he still wasn't sure he could keep up with, or even keep. Past, earlier. Memories flooded back as a moral support. Earlier that day, back in Kolhapur, Hari had leaned against the doorframe of Rakesh's room as Rakesh stuffed his last shirt into the bag. So, no ticket for return? Hari asked. Rakesh looked up. Not yet. Depends on how things go. Hari frowned, pushing himself into the room. You sure you want to do this alone? I don't think my parents would appreciate me bringing backup, Rakesh said, zipping the bag with a sharp tug. Hari smirked, but then his tone softened. They're going to be upset. I know. Are you ready for that? Rakesh sat on the bed, the duffel at his feet. I don't know what I'm ready for anymore. I just know I can't keep hiding her. Hina deserves more than that. Hari walked over and gave a light pat to his friend's shoulder. Well, I've known you to do some dumb things, but this isn't one of them. Rakesh gave a tired smile. Thanks. If your old man yells too much, just come back and stay in my room. I'll sleep on the roof. You hate the roof. I'll take a bullet for you, brother. I can survive a mosquito or two. Downstairs. Tell him I said hello. And tell him. Mr. Inamdar finally looked up. Tell him his son is turning into a good man, even if he doesn't see it. Rakesh nodded slowly, touched. Thank you, sir. Inamdar waved him off with a grumble. Don't thank me. Just be brave. And now, the bus bumped along an uneven road, and Rakesh sat with all those words echoing in his head. Brave. That word didn't feel like it belonged to him. Not yet. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe after the fight. Maybe after the silence. Maybe. Part 5. The past in Rakesh's parents' village. The village looked exactly the same. That dusty familiarity, like a photograph Rakesh had been carrying in his heart for years. Narrow mud paths curved between small stone-walled houses, their roofs patched with red tiles, some chipped, some moss-stained. Buffaloes tied near wooden posts lazily swung their tails, and the occasional cluck of hens filled the air. There was a sweetness to it all, a stillness Rakesh had once loathed, now gently wrapping around him. The banyan tree near the square still cast a wide net of shade, and the old iron pump still squeaked the same rhythm as it spat water into aluminum pots. A few kids chased each other barefoot, kicking up dust. The smell of cow dung from cow stalls and burning wood hovered faintly in the air. Rakesh's feet moved slowly, as if guided by the rhythm of memory rather than direction. "Oh, Rakesh, you've come back," an old man with a trimmed gray beard called from his small table. Rakesh smiled warmly. "Hello, uncle. How are you?" "Still breathing, which means still fighting with the wife," the man chuckled. "You look thin. Eat something here before you go." Rakesh nodded politely. "I will next time. Just reaching home first." Another woman shouted from her doorway, "Rakesh, son, you become a proper city man now." Rakesh waved. "Only on the surface, auntie." The path curved to the left and opened into a small courtyard in front of a familiar house. The stone walls stood like old friends, worn but still strong. Paint chipped along the windowsills, and a thin curtain flapped in the warm breeze. He knocked gently. The wooden door creaked open, and there she was, Sarasvati Kure, his mother. Her sari was old, the border faded, but her eyes lit up like Diwali lamps the moment they landed on him. "Rakesh," she gasped, her voice breaking. He smiled shyly, and before he could say a word, she pulled him into a tight embrace. "My son, my boy." Rakesh closed his eyes, feeling the warmth, but he didn't realize he'd missed so badly. Behind her, footsteps. His father appeared from the side room, pausing at the doorway. So you remembered the way home," Shamrav Kura said, crossing his arms. Rakesh straightened from his mother's arms. "Hello, Baba." His father gave a stiff nod. But with a slight, genuine smile. The three of them stood in silence for a moment, the unspoken years sitting between them. Later, sitting on a jute mat with a steel glass of buttermilk in his hand, Rakesh told them about his life in the city, about work, about the restaurant. His father cleared his throat. "And Amdar still walks straight for his age?" Rakesh smiled. "Yes. He told me to say hello to you." Shamrav muttered. "Good man. Smart, too." Another pause. The buttermilk had turned warm in Rakesh's hand. "You're still doing that. What do you call it? Book picture work?" "Book cover designing, Baba." "Humph. And people pay you for that?" Rakesh nodded. "Yes, not much yet, but it's getting better. I'm building a name. You were always good at drawing. Wasted it on silly things, but still." Shamrav's voice softened for a second. Then the shift came, like the crack in a plate before it breaks. "You've crossed a marriage age now, haven't you?" The marriage age for men in the village was less than 22, so Rakesh was far beyond that age. Yet, the shame. Rakesh looked down. "I spoke to Bhaskar Kaka last month. Lajvani's parents are still hoping it." "Baba, she's a good girl. Decent family. Why are you still delaying?" "Because I don't want to marry her," Rakesh said, firmer this time. "I told you that before." The air thickened. "You think you know better than your parents now?" Shamrav's eyes narrowed. "I think I know who I want to be with," Rakesh said, trying to keep his voice even. Sarasvati entered then, placing a plate on the floor. "The food is ready," she said quickly, her tone high and deliberate, cutting through the tension. She looked at Rakesh, silently pleading to shut up. Then at Shamrav. Rakesh stood up slowly. "I'll eat later. I need some air." He stepped out before his father could reply. The river behind the village was still the same, a quiet mirror edged with moss-covered stones. The ancient stone steps, carved from time and history, welcomed him like old friends. He sat on the lowest one, the hem of his pants brushing against the cold water. The memory from the past came uninvited. The time when he left the village for good. He had stood here the night after the argument. His father's voice was ringing in his ears. "A promise is a promise, boy. I gave my word. I'm not some gift to hand over, Baba. I don't love her. Love is not enough. You know nothing about love." The slap had come sharp and fast. The sting had burned more than his cheek. It burned his trust, his place in that house. That night, he'd packed quietly, and his mother had stood in the doorframe, one hand on her mouth, saying nothing, her eyes red. Now he sat alone, staring at the rippling reflection of himself. He didn't know what scared him more, telling his parents about Hina, or the possibility that Hina would never truly understand why he couldn't do it sooner. Part 6. The past, later. The light of the evening sun stretched thin over the river, painting golden streaks across the surface. Crickets had just started their rhythmic chorus, and the air had turned cooler with the approaching dusk. Rakesh sat quietly on the stone steps, his elbows resting on his knees, his thoughts knotted, heavy. Then he heard it, light footsteps on gravel, followed by a familiar voice. "Nice spot." Rakesh turned sharply. "Hina." She stood a few steps above, dressed in a pale kurta and jeans, her long hair tied back loosely, swaying with the breeze. Her face held that calm, unreadable expression she often wore when she was upset but didn't want to show it. Rakesh's heart fluttered at her image, but then, realization. What are you doing here? Rakesh stood up, confused. She raised both her arms with her phone in hand. This thing. Rakesh blinked. What? She stepped down slowly and sat beside him without saying more. Then she turned the screen to him. A map was open, his location pinned. Rakesh stared, his brows furrowing. You were following me? She shrugged, still not looking at him. You left without saying anything. I did call you. You were busy. You don't know that doesn't mean you get to track me, Hina. His voice tightened, just a little sharper now. You didn't pick up your phone. She leaned back on her palms, eyes still on the horizon. Hina, that's not the point. This is my family, my village. You just showing up like this isn't helping. She finally looked at him, coolly, eyes narrowed just a fraction. You're not my husband, Rakesh. You don't get to tell me what I can or can't do. The words landed like a slap, not because they were cruel, but because they were so deliberately detached. Rakesh blinked at her, baffled. What, is that a joke? She didn't answer. Hina is again just thinking about everything from only her side. He leaned forward, frustrated. You don't understand, okay? I came here to talk to them about us, about you. But this? You're being so pushy. This just complicates everything. So let's go tell them, she said flatly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. No. Rakesh stood up, pacing 2 steps ahead, then turning back to face her. You have no idea what happened between me and my father. You think this is just about me being nervous. His voice cracked slightly. It's not. It's about history. It's about respect. Or the lack of it. Please, just go back, Hina. I'll come back after it's done. She didn't move. She sat silently, her knees pulled up, arms wrapped around them, eyes on the river. A few minutes passed in stillness. Then, softly, without turning her head, she asked, Do you love me? The question came so simply that it stunned Rakesh. Yes, he said immediately, but it felt too fast, too easy. She turned toward him, her eyes sharp now, focused. Then why don't I see it? Rakesh looked away. The river had never seemed so loud before. I'm here for you, he whispered, his voice suddenly small. I came here for you, she replied. And you told me to leave. He didn't know what to say. Everything felt tangled inside him, his past, his guilt, his shame. The fight, the promise, his mother's silence, Hina's defiance, his own cowardice. He sat beside her again. The silence stretched until the shadows lengthened over the stone. Finally, he said, I came here to talk to them about you. Please wait until then. Trust me, just a little longer. He turned to her, brushed her forehead gently with his lips, a quiet kiss filled with apology. Then he stood. She didn't stop him. And he didn't look back. The end.